4 words for the Atlanta Falcons to get their groove back this weekend against the Miami Dolphins. Run the damn ball.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So on today's illustrious episode of Locked On Falcons podcast, we'll be talking about how the Falcons can get their groove back, get back to the good vibes that we had a week ago on this show. If there's any concern about Michael Penix's injured knee and preventing him from playing, and is that, Kirktober in the air? And then on defense, if Divine Diablo's value can be effectively replaced by a committee of players. But if you don't know who I am, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman. Been covering the Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at FalcFans.com. RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that go strong with me as everydayers. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So unlike last week, due to technical difficulties, we did not have our very illustrious guests that we have on today. That is Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta, a person who I've been taking shots at. We don't have the Troy Anderson, Nate Landman battles, Jarvis. So we got to get into something here on the podcast.
Gotta refresh this thing, man.
Yeah,
like our battles.
Yes. We need to be petty and at one another on these shows. That brings up the entertainment value. So. We'll squabble over Jesse Bates, but maybe we'll save that for a future episode. But, talking about this Falcons team, obviously coming off a disappointing loss to the 49ers, have an opportunity to come back home. I know you and I both agree that this team is a much better home team than they are a road team. All signs sort of point going up against this Dolphins team that has very bad vibes. If you checked out yesterday's crossover Thursday with Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins, it was basically just like, yeah, it's terrible down there in Miami. And he basically joked that weep for the team that gets to play the Dolphins after they fire Mike McDaniel, which seems like an inevitability, but the timing is right that, maybe that happens next week, but given their short week, after this game, maybe it's the week after that. Who knows? But go check out Locked On Dolphins if you want to really feel what the bad vibes are on a football team as opposed to where they are in Atlanta. But all that to say, Jarvis, how do you think this team gets back on track and get those good vibes back in Atlanta this weekend against the Dolphins?
Falcons need to play well enough so Mike McDaniel can get fired. I hate to put it like that. I think that, this should be one of those bring forth the sacrificial lamb, like that, being able to, and they do that by running the football. They do that by giving the ball to Mr. Magic himself, Mr. Walk on Water, Bijan Robinson. For those you don't know and haven't listened to this program, if you haven't listened to this program, what the heck where do you get your Falcons content? That's all I have to ask. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. We need to get with the program. But I think that is the basis of this offense. That is the foundation of who this team is. And when you think about what they want to do and what they have to do in order for this offense to look functional, if they don't run the football, they don't look functional. It seems like Zach Robinson doesn't really have an answer when they aren't able to run the football effectively. So I feel like they bounce back by making sure to get Bijan Robinson the football, get this man line up out in the slot, get that defense paying attention to him, and then figuring out a way to get the ball to 5 as well, get that 9 to 5 connection. Because I feel like if Drake is somehow getting off, Like this team they should roll. They should roll because if they're getting it to Drake, that means that they're running the football effectively, and they got that 1-2 combination going on, and then somehow Kyle Pitts is able to get himself involved once those two get going. I think that this should be a game that Mike McDaniels get fired. And then, I got a little scenario. Can I be a petty scenario in my head? I got a petty. Can I throw it at you? Kind of get your
You
thought?
are a monger of pettiness, so go
Yes.
ahead.
You know what I'm saying? I'm a reformed petty monger. You know what I'm saying? I'm no longer him. But every now and then I dib and dab. So for all those folks who don't want Zach Robinson on this squad, let's just say he does get that Oklahoma State gig at the end of the year. And they actually force Mr. Ross down there for the Miami Dolphins, owner of Miami Dolphins, to fire Mike McDaniels. Mike McDaniels look like he cool enough to live in Atlanta again. You know what I'm saying? Let Mike McDaniels be the OC, baby. He got plenty of experience. That's what everybody wants, right? You know what I'm saying? Bring Mike McDaniels back on home, man. Bring him back into the fold. And you get you an experienced play caller, Michael Penix. You know what I'm saying? He better than Tua. I say that right now. I said he much better than Tua. He ain't gonna throw people under the bus like Tua been doing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of weird stuff down there. But yeah, man, what do you think about that?
I like Mike McDaniel. It hasn't looked great this year. That's the one that gives me pause.
He's not a good head coach. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. How much of this is just being a bad head coach versus the play calling, right? Because when he first, when he got the job in 22, that was the first time he ever called plays, and that offense in those first 2 years was humming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, if you can get that, but I don't know. You know me, I'm always skeptical of all things.
Went down a rabbit hole.
So it's like one of those things where it's like, there are things that I think Mike McDaniel can do that are probably better than Zach Robinson. But probably my big question with Mike McDaniel is how much of his success is having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the field, and do you need that type of speed in order to make his offense work? Like, can he work with a Drake London and or Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney and all those guys as successfully? So that's an open question, but for me, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess.
Yeah, man, I understand that. I get that. But as far as the game goes, I think that this is, I hate this. It seemed like every week we talking about a statement game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the Falcons can at least establish themselves as being able to beat the team that they're supposed to beat. Like, you're supposed to beat the Dolphins because this team is awful. Like you said, it's a dumpster fire. We talked about it on the Falcon squad earlier in the week. Just like, they have so many things going on. It's going to be hard for them to focus in on just winning this football game because of everything that's going on. You got guys like Jalen Phillips, who's on the trading block. Bradley Chubb could be traded. It's so many moving parts going on with this team that it's going to be hard for them to kind of focus in on the task at hand. And I think that the Falcons should be focused on the task at hand, because you're coming off a pretty bad loss. Not as bad as Carolina, but it's a pretty bad loss. And then you're at home. So, yeah, there's no reason why they should come out here and perform at a average to below average level.
Yeah, I agree. You talk about the run game, depending on what stats you look at, but basically Miami's a bottom 5 run team in terms of defending the run. And, last week against the 49ers, you look at that opening game script, whether it's 15 or 20 plays, they ran the ball 4 times in the first 15 plays, 5 times in the first 20 plays. And at the very least, you want to get that to like 10 and 10, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
Get Bijan at least 10 carries in the first quarter, and that should be an effective way to get this game going. And I think leaning on the run game makes a ton of sense because of the injury to Michael Penix and whether or not that's going to inhibit him as a passer. and that's led to a lot of questions about whether Michael Penix should start this weekend. I didn't think we would get to this point at this stage in the season, Jarvis, but let's talk about it. Is it time to dust off the Kirktober calendar? And we'll get into all of that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. With the NFL season being here, FanDuel wants to give you a can't miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the FanDuel app. And FanDuel gives you so many different ways to win, whether you're betting on NFL or you're excited about the NBA season arriving. It's always going to keep things interesting, whether you're losing same game parlays, player props, you want to bet the straight up money line, or you want to bet the spread like this weekend where the Falcons are 7.5 point favorites against the Miami Dolphins. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. And if you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's SAD. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling, the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. It's basically the Bijan Robinson of platforms, uniting your employees, teams, and departments all in one system that's going to design to give you clarity, speed, and control. And whether you want that Bijan Robinson operating, with your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or you just need to fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnfl. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnfl. That's rippling.com/lockedonnfl for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. So, there was the uproar from some media folks, as well as some fans, that Penix, now that we have nine starts, which everybody knows is more than enough. That's 8 more games than you need to really truly evaluate a quarterback. If you're not picking up the sarcasm, guys, I know it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard, but a lot of people feel like
in America, yes, it's kind of hard to pick up on it.
Yeah,
always petty.
Yeah. So I know some people were like, I don't understand human emotions, and is he being serious when he says stuff like that? But a lot of people are kind of ready to abandon ship on Michael Penix. And there's been, some concern about obviously that knee injury. And as we discussed on Thursday on the Falcons squad, it led to some inconsistencies late in the game. And obviously, you don't want to have those inconsistencies, with his ability to avoid pressure, his ability to make accurate throws, carry over into this game, because that's the sort of thing that, you don't want to have, so that Miami can have their sort of get right game if Penix is playing poorly. So I'm curious, Jarvis, when you hear all this talk about benching Penix, as far as whether we've seen enough of Penix to know what he is, where do you weigh in on that? And then more specifically, is there any sort of concern about, maybe just, we'll just sit down Michael Penix for this one game just because he's not going to be fully healthy, and Kirk will, keep us going. So I'm just curious, how do you sort of weigh in on the potential for a quarterback controversy here in Atlanta?
Stop. Let's stop it, man. Not to you. I'm just saying, all of the Michael Penix detractors, somehow those guys are popping up. I don't know where y'all coming from, but here's the thing, man. It takes a while for quarterbacks to develop. And here's the thing. You have to believe that the things that you've been seeing, there are certain traits that Michael Penix has put on tape. And I like those traits. as far, I think he was the best quarterback in the fourth quarter. If you're talking about fourth quarter rating, like I think going into that going into the last game, he had the best rating in the fourth quarter. That's what I want my quarterback playing with. Yep. The first three might not look that great or might be a little inconsistent, but if you're turning it on in that moment, yeah, I like that trait. That's one trait that I really like. I feel like you can be a franchise type quarterback or a legitimate start, at least a legitimate starter. That's the floor if you performing well in crunch time. And we've seen that multiple times. We've seen in the first game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were supposed to win that game, but those are some of the things that you have to believe. The inconsistency, yeah, it's going to come because guess what? The film is going to be out there. They're going to get tendencies. A lot of times guys don't understand how to, change things up in certain moments. Maybe you look at another backside, if your first read is not there, or if that Drake London pass, that pass to Drake London is not where it needs to be. Yeah, he has some separation, but, could he have thrown the backside? Possibly, maybe, but, I think that in those moments, you have to trust that quarterback. And I think that overall, with that assessment, I'm saying that you should be able to get a good feel for who he is as a quarterback, who he could be, who he could project to be. Now, I feel like these Michael Penix detractors are people who were never on board. Right? That's what I take that as. You were never on board with Michael Penix if you're saying 9 games in, oh man, it's time to go ahead and go to Kirk and figure out the rest later. Nah, no. That's not how this works. You turn around and hand the ball off to 7 and 25 so he can work through those things. If he's hurt, yeah, okay, that's fine. All right, we're gonna run the ball 35 times or 40 times. Let's do that. You make the adjustment. You don't go to Kirk Cousins. I know it's October 20. I know we're recording this on October 23rd, but bro, I don't want to see no Kirktober. I don't care for that smoke. I don't want that smoke. I know you want that. I know you feel it in your soul too.
What? No, Jarvis, no.
Yes, man. I know you. I can tell, man. It's written all over your face. For those who listening, I'm telling you, this man wants that smoke. He wants the drama, the controversy, because hey, man, with controversy and drama comes listens and views, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, hey, I don't want that. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to be able to talk about a team that is developing a young quarterback, a team that is moving towards the future, all the while still trying to compete in the present. And I think the Falcons can continue to do that with Michael Penix under center.
I know you don't believe me when I say this, Jarvis, but I'm on the same boat. I'm just saying, as I told you before we started recording, in confidence, Jarvis, that if you're not going to give me a compelling product on the field, then give me the drama off the field, because I need something to talk about 5 days a week. So that's basically where that comes.
Well, you can't be playing with people's emotions, man. Do you understand how people live and die by this team, man?
Yes, I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you, Jarvis, though.
Yeah.
I really do. It's too. I remember this with Matt Ryan. Like I'm old enough to remember the early years of Matt Ryan, and social media wasn't like it is today. But I remember getting into arguments on websites like FalcFans.com, RIP, and the forums that they had. And pretty much anytime Matt Ryan had a bad game, people would be like, "I don't know if Matt Ryan's the guy," Matt Ryan, in a lot of ways, I think some of the issues with Michael Penix mirror some of the early issues with Matt Ryan, which again, I think now that we look back at it, 17 years ago when Matt Ryan was a rookie quarterback, I've said this many times on the podcast, I feel like we mythologize Matt Ryan's early career because we know it was a successful career. So we kind of erase all the ups and downs that he went through in his first, 2-3 years in Atlanta, because we just kind of focus on the good because we know what the outcome was.
Yeah. Michael Turner was the MVP in his rookie year.
Yeah.
We saw number 2's back, and we saw 33 a lot.
Yes. That offense was hand the ball off to Michael Turner, and then Roddy White's open down there somewhere, so I'm just going to throw
Right.
it up, and Roddy's going to
Yeah.
go get the football.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, and so like Penix's struggles are mainly to me related on the road. Like he's been very good at home, and he's been not so good on the road. And Matt Ryan was very similar early on in his career. And you had a very good running game, and you had what people often forget was a pretty good Falcons defense early on in Matt Ryan's time. It wasn't, world beater, wasn't top 5 or anything like this current Falcons
Heath
defense.
Brooklyn was the leading tackler, so should
But
tell
it
you
was a solid, you had John Abraham and Jonathan Babineau and several solid players on those teams that they were able to, it's not quite the same as it is today with how the league is played, but they could stop the run, and they were decent, above average defense, I would say. And that was kind of their formula to success. And then Matt Ryan just kind of had to manage the game. And as you said, oftentimes in the fourth quarter, he needed to put together a couple of good drives for this team to go out there and win a game, and he was capable of doing that. And I feel like that's a winning formula for the Falcons, especially with this current team, with the way that Bijan and Tyler Algier are playing, with the way that the defense is playing, and as you mentioned, with Penix's performance typically in the clutch, playing at a high level. I just think the Falcons have the opportunity to get back to that, but it's probably going to be a little bit more of a roller coaster than people would ideally want it, because they just kind of want, they look at some of these other young quarterbacks that have sort of immediately been successful and immediately been like, MVP caliber sort of quarterbacks in that conversation, and not willing to have the patience to go through probably what is going to continue to be a bit of a roller coaster with Michael Penix, but that is kind of typical for a lot of young quarterbacks.
Yeah, man. I think that sometimes, as a fan, as a person who's been covering this team for, I don't know, been a minute, you understand that, okay, this guy's going to be a good football player. But objectively, you have to understand that, he's going to struggle. Yeah. Like there's a trend, like you said, on the road, it's a different quarterback, just a different quarterback. And I think that you're going to have to continue to figure out ways to work through that so you can be better on the road, because obviously you have to win on the road if you want to try to go to the playoffs. It's just kind of how the numbers work. But that is something that's an element of his game that he needs to work on. That doesn't mean he's garbage. That doesn't mean he needs to be benched. And I think that people kind of have to understand that there are different plates of his game that come together to have one plate so you can eat off of. And just part of that plate is the playing on the road. Like, got to figure that out. Zach Robinson going to have to figure that out. Those guys are going to have to sit down at the table and say, okay, here what has worked for us on the road. All right. From the passing game standpoint, put all those things together and say, come up with a plan. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we did in the past. But here's what I feel like you're more comfortable with. Or Michael Penix said, hey, here's what I'm more comfortable with as the season goes along. And, and they're going to have to come together on that. But as of right now, the key to success, the key to them getting to the postseason, they got to make sure they block them people up front. If they block them people up front and move those cats 2 to 3, just 1.5 to 2 yards off the ball, and let Sam go to work. That's all he needs. Just don't have him in the backfield when he get the ball in his hands. The first person is going to miss. I can guarantee it. You can bet that. if you got your body in between him and that running back, if you got your body between the defender and Bijan Robinson as an offensive lineman, you good. That's all you got to do. Everything else, just let the man cook. He gonna cook. I promise you. So, yeah, man, it's just a matter of showing patience. I know people don't want to hear that here in Atlanta. I get it. But, yeah, man, just know that this offense is built around seven having success running the football. And once that happens, look at the product. You've seen it. If they have success running the football, man, this offense can go.
Yeah. So we will see if that patience will win out for Michael Penix against his many detractors. As you say, Jarvis, I believe a lot of those people are, just like, I didn't like this pick from the jump, and I will take every opportunity to take shots now. But, we'll see if patience is what is needed on the defensive side of the ball to wrap up today's episode, because Falcons lose a critical piece to their defense in Divine Diablo. Jeff Ulbrich, the Falcons defensive coordinator, says, we're going to use a committee approach to sort of fill that gap. And we'll pick Jarvis's brain on whether he thinks that can work for this defense, and sort of maybe another unit, or a player will have to sort of pick up the slack to kind of help fill that void along with that committee. And we'll break that down to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. And today's episode is also brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments to do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep the game moving forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward for the Atlanta Falcons was Bijan Robinson scoring on that screen pass. It looked incredible, right? Just ducking, dodging, diving, all that sort of stuff. Hitting the running backs, or the blockers hitting their blocks, running back Bijan doing his thing and getting in the end zone. And when you literally follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there is more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So, Jarvis, Jeff Ulbrich said it's going to be kind of a committee approach to filling Divine Diablo's shoes, very large shoes. I don't know quite what his shoe size is, but by determining his impact on the Falcons defense through the first 6 games of the season, it felt like that man was wearing size 18 shoes or something like that. So these are pretty big shoes to fill. And, he mentioned J.D. Bertrand, Jordan Fuller, who's potentially going to be coming back from IR, DeMarco Helms, as 3 players that are kind of part of the quote-unquote committee they will try to use to Josh Woods, I think, was another one that he threw out there to sort of fill this large void in the defense. First, Jarvis, do you feel like that approach, obviously I don't think anybody expects it to be the exact same, but do you feel like that can help fill that void?
I mean, you're talking about by committee. It just lets you know that what Divine Diablo brought to the table made things so easy. Not for Jeff Ulbrich as a play caller, but for his teammates too. Because Divine Diablo was the ideal linebacker, like ideal off-ball linebacker, meaning in today's game, meaning he can cover, he can doggone come downhill in that run game and feel. When he gonna feel that hole. That's exactly what he's gonna do. And then he can bring that thump too when it's time to rush the passer as well. So you got a guy with those 3 traits combined in one person. The guys you mentioned about him coming in, yeah, Jordan Fuller can probably stick with some running backs coming out of the backfield. DeMarco Helms can probably stick with some guys coming out of the backfield. But what happens when they turn around and hand that ball off and that guard is coming at your behind? And when you're out there in nickel and you're at that linebacker spot, that's going to be the problem. That's going to be the issue. So when you have a guy like that can do multiple things, yeah, you're going to have multiple guys that can do different things come in there. And what it's going to do is it's going to make Jeff Ulbrich stay up a little bit later, when it comes to coming up with a game plan. So, and I think that Jeff Ulbrich is more than capable. Let me go ahead and put that out there as well. I love what he can do and what he is and who he is as a coach. But it's just it's going to be hard, man. It's going to be hard because you're talking about replacing. You got multiple safeties, and you got a guy like Josh Woods who had a really nice preseason. He had a really nice preseason. He was aggressive, coming downhill, but what does he look like in coverage? What does he look like rushing the passer? Is he good enough to, in coverage, to have Caden Ellis come on down and get some work coming off the edge? Is he that good in coverage? We shall see. And I think that those are the things that concern me the most, is that Divine Diablo did so many things. Well, he did all things that that a linebacker needs to be able to do in today's game. And it's going to take a committee of guys to fill in for him, but you just don't know if he can, because that's like I said, big shoes. Would you say size 18? Yeah. It's gonna take a little bit.
Yeah. Is there a unit or is there another player beyond this committee? Is it Caden Ellis? Yes, I gotta do everything again. I can't just sit here and rush the quarterback, which has been the case the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Or do you need maybe the safeties to step up? Your boy Jesse Bates, or a defensive lineman or something. I'm curious. Because we're not expecting to get the exact same out of that second linebacker position moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
How do the Falcons how does Jeff Ulbrich, if you're up there late at night, checking out, peeking in the office, be like, hey, Jeff, you need anything? You're offering your advice, lean on this player or this unit to help compensate a little bit for Divine Diablo's absence.
It all starts up front. David Onyemata, Sam Roberts, Laquel London, all y'all. We're going to need every last one of y'all to get off the freaking ball, man, and get off blocks. Do not let these offensive linemen get their hands on you. Move them, slap them, do whatever you got to do to get those offensive linemen hands on you, off of you, and find the rock, especially early downs, because Mike McDaniel got a little Kyle Shanahan in him. He watched the tape last week. Oh, bring a fullback into the fold, get a nice little tight end up in there. Devon A-Chain, we know you got success getting outside. Nah, that's gonna play into their favor. That's gonna play. They want you to run sideline east-west. That's what they want you to do. He's gonna try it. I promise you. Mike McDaniel is going to try it. So yeah, gonna need those big boys up front to get their hands in the chest of those offensive linemen, figure out where the ball is, and get off blocks, man, because there ain't gonna be no two gapping and trying to see what's going on, man, because A-Chain is going to get up in there. Yeah. He gonna get going. Yeah. That stuff don't work for those little cockroach running backs. Like, it just doesn't work. So you're gonna have to get your hands on these offensive linemen, get in their chest, and move these guys around and get off blocks and get in that, play around in the backfield. That's the only way that Jeff Ulbrich can say, okay, here's my counter to what we just lost. Yeah. Defensive line, y'all gotta step up.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see if the Falcons defensive line, as well as the rest of the defense, will step up. We'll see what the offense does. We'll see if they get back to their winning formula by getting sprinkling a little blue magic into that offense.
Yes, stand by it.
We'll be covering it all Sunday afternoon, back to normal 1:00 times. Yes. On the Locked On Sports Atlanta, Locked On Falcons postcast with myself on the Falcon squad, Jarvis Davis, Tanisha Batiste, hour full of content. Immediately following that, follow whistle, followed by 30 minutes of yours truly solo content on Locked On Falcons. So an hour and a half coverage of all the things that are going to happen on Sunday between the Falcons and Dolphins. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta, as well as Locked On Falcons on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And, in the meantime, if you're curious about what's else matchups are going on this weekend across the NFL, check out Locked On NFL, 2 shows daily. They'll also give you that recap on that Thursday night matchup between the Chargers and Vikings. I don't remember who's playing. somebody. But whoever that Thursday night matchup is, they'll give you the scoop on that and recap that as well for you. So go check it out. Locked On NFL is part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.